Well, hello again. This is Jeffrey Cranford with Links, and I'm back with Tracy Hanson, and we're continuing our little series on thinking like a pro. And I want to bring up a thought here, and again, this is from Paul's writing to the church at Corinth, and he really kind of chastised them. He said in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, he said, "We are not bold to class or compare ourselves with some of those who commend themselves. But when they measure themselves by themselves, they are without understanding." There is a tendency to always, because it's the nature of sports, compare ourselves statistically, money list, shot average, driving distance, etc., etc. There's this constant tendency, and I think sometimes that's true in the spiritual realm. You first come to Jesus, you see somebody who really knows the Word and knows where all the addresses of all the scriptures that they've ever heard are, and they know how to get around, or they're really, and you just felt, man, I'll never be that, and it almost, you lose, the wind comes out of your sails, and you feel like, I'll never be like such and such, but there's not wisdom in that, is there? And it's also true in golf. Was there? Did you find that when you were playing?
Yeah, I mean, especially as a young player, 20 years ago when I came on tour, you had Betsy Kings and Beth Daniels and Nancy Lopez and all these great golfers, and I felt so small and invisible and little. And but I remember playing with Annika, one of our great players of the last couple decades, and she hit it further than I did. She was a better putter than I was. And so there was this tendency of feeling inadequate. And here we are, peers playing against each other in the same tournament.
Right.
For the same money, for the same trophy, and yet this feeling of inadequacy because there was this awe-ness and of like, I can't be that good.
Sure.
And in that respect, playing with her makes you a better player.
That's true. I mean, there's when we begin to compare ourselves and on, we lose a sense of the sovereignty of God too. One of the things that we know, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, as well as Romans chapter 14, talk about the gifts, Romans 12, the gifts of the Spirit. So to each is given a measure of faith. Some people are given different talents and skills and spiritual giftings. Well, that's true in golf too, where nobody is perfect at everything. I think Jordan Spieth recently, one of the things they talk about is that he may not be, though his putting is tremendous, number one from I think 15 feet to 25 or something like that, but everything, he's kind of good and balanced in everything. He's not tremendous in anything, but he's really good in everything and doesn't have a glaring weakness. But most of us have some area where we go, I can see there's almost a spiritual gift. And you take a guy like Zach Johnson or somebody who is a tremendous wedge player, through a lot of work, by the way, and is a good friend of this ministry. And has he win the British Open? Going into this year's British Open at St. Andrews, they all said this is a bomber's course. Dustin Johnson is a shoo-in, especially after the first two rounds. And Zach just plods away with his but what Zach does understand, I know it, is he knows that his strengths are not going to be driving distance, but it's going to be wedging it, getting it up and down, doing those kind of things. So he doesn't compare himself with others. He said, these are my strengths, and I'm gonna really work hard on these strengths. What are your strengths? Well, what were your strengths too? When you look back to your career, what were your strengths versus your weaknesses?
I'd say my biggest strength was my iron play. Being able to control my irons, hit good iron shots. And my weakest place was probably my putting. I was a streaky putter, and that doesn't always bode well when you're trying to win tournaments.
Right.
And I struggled there, and it was hard for me to practice because of my back, and so it was a constant struggle.
Sure.
Becoming a better putter.
Sure. So one of the things to press on to maturity, to move and begin to think like a pro, is that there are times where you got to accept, I may have a little thorn in my side. I may never be really adept or a superstar in this area, but the Lord has given me gifts, and I need to take those gifts and really absorb myself. That's exactly what Paul told Timothy. He said, Timothy, you need to absorb yourself in your gift. His gift had to be teaching, even though he wasn't quite a teacher yet. Absorb yourself in these things, Paul said, so that you might not only ensure salvation for yourself, but for those who hear you. In other words, absorb yourself in what God has gifted you to do, your strengths. That's how one of the ways we really press on to maturity. We can't be great at everything.
Right, and I think I've kind of gone through that spiritually. Of like, I want to be like all my friends who are good exhorters or good at hospitality or good at giving and I've had to kind of hone in on like, what is my strength?
Right.
I'm not a teacher of the word like you are. And
I don't know about
that. Yet
that.
I can encourage people in the word.
I don't know about that. I think that's not true. But anyway, so pressing on maturity requires what? Sometimes just not comparing yourself. Just go to Jesus, and he'll give you all the validation you need. You don't have to compare. So let's continue again in the next segment.